We know that He won't fail. What a great song to end on. He won't fail. Whatever we're going through in life, we know that He won't fail. He's going to lift us up. He's going to keep us up. He's the one that sustains us. He's the one that gives us everything. He won't fail. What a great, great message. You know what? We can go home. You guys ready? We can go home if you want, because that was a great message right there. So thank you, band. You guys did really awesome. We're on this new series that we're starting today. By the way, I missed you guys last week. I don't know if you missed me last week, but I missed you last week. So I'm happy to see you guys again. And I guess we want this one. I missed that too. You know, we're all good though. We're all good. Everybody good? Everybody's good. We're all good. I missed you guys, and if you guys weren't here last week, I don't know. So just pretend like you were, and it really doesn't make a difference because I wasn't here. We got to go to Chicago, and thank you guys for everybody who filled in. I took like 6 people from our main leadership team to Chicago with us last Sunday. So if everybody looked a little chaotic last week, it's because it was chaotic last week, and everybody pitched in and just did amazing. So thank you for all that, to allow us to go to our new sister church, as Kevin and Katerina was telling us, at Starting Point Community Church. And today, as we begin, I know we're about to venture out into a new world. If you weren't here for the last few weeks, we're starting a brand new church in Riverview on September 10th. Extraordinary Church, Riverview. Yes, thank you, Robbie. And this morning, we just left there. We left this building this morning, and we saw the setup, and just the people that's all around. The population is just immense that's over there. And so as we begin, I thought this would be a good time to kind of go back to the beginning. Go back to the beginning of when we started. So we've been church planners for 2 years now. We've had our doors open for 1.5 years now. And when we started, and still to this day, I get one main question. The number one question I always get about our church is, why in the world did you name it Extraordinary Church, right? I get that. In fact, some of you guys, you probably say, I go to Extraordinary Church, and they're like, well, that's a dumb name. Right? You probably get that a lot. Let's be honest, right? You guys know, probably somebody said that to you before. You say, why in the world would you call it Extraordinary Church? And this happened years and years and years ago. I was sitting at a conference, and somebody told me a C.S. Lewis quote. And it's one that really stuck with me through the years. And here's the quote. It says, Christianity, if false, is of no importance, and if true, of infinite importance. The only thing it cannot be is moderately important. So the more that I dwelled on that thought, to say that Christianity, if completely true, that means that we need to give an extraordinary effort. If false, reject it. The only thing that doesn't make any sense is to know that Christianity is true and to live an ordinary life. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me that if we know the truth about who God is and how He sent His Son Jesus to die on the cross for us so that one day we can be united with our God in heaven, if we know that for a fact and we still live an average everyday life, to me it doesn't make a lot of sense. I believe God is calling us to live an extraordinary life. And that's why we named our church Extraordinary Church. In fact, last night, just to put this into context a little bit, last night, we didn't know this was going to happen. So this obviously wasn't written in here. And some of you guys are going to say, did he write his message last night? No, I'm adding this in, okay? I didn't write it last night. I know some, I didn't see my mom there. I'm sorry, I just got distracted. Hi, Mom. I didn't know you came in today. Sorry. So last night, we came home, and we walked into the house, and my daughter was crying. Kate was crying, just like sobbing, crying. And here's my first thought, Robbie. Honestly, I was like, all right, her brother did something to her, right? Like, I'm sure he hit her somehow. She can be a little bit clumsy, and so maybe she fell. You know, she has hurt herself, like making rice before. Like, there's all sorts of things. Like, here's why she was crying. She was crying yesterday because she started school, and she's been at school for 2 days, and she started to realize that the people in her class don't know Jesus. And she was sobbing uncontrollably last night because she knew that the people in her class needed to know Jesus and who He was. She got on FaceTime and told one of her buddies all about Jesus, shared the gospel with her friend from beginning to end, who we believe prayed an acceptance prayer of Christ in there. My daughter, my 10-year-old daughter, on FaceTime on her first 2 days of school was able to lead one of her friends to Christ. And you know why? Thank you. You know why? Because Christianity is false. is of no importance. But if true, there is nothing in the world that is more important than what we do. There is nothing in the world more important than letting people know about the love of Jesus. There is nothing in the world more important than telling everybody that you know that Jesus is alive, Jesus is real, and Jesus is here for you. And so as we started this church, we started thinking about this quote, and we started thinking about how can we live an extraordinary life. And what really dawned on me was Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, which says that male and female, He created us. In the image of God, we are created. And so if we're created in the image of God, and me, I do not believe Christianity to be false. It has not been rejected in my life. It has been accepted in my life. And if I'm over here in the acceptance category, then I believe God to be an extraordinary God. And if God is an extraordinary God, and the Bible says we've been made in His image, that means that we are extraordinary people. And if we're extraordinary people, then what we're supposed to do is to live an extraordinary life. In fact, when we started this church, some of you guys might remember this, my wife and I used to come up here and we'd give the motto at the end of the message. What's a motto? Nothing. What's a motto with you? We would get up here at the end of the message and we would give the motto, God is extraordinary, you are extraordinary, so be extraordinary. And that was good. Yeah, we liked that. We liked that for a while. That was good, right? That was good. That was good for a while. After about 4 weeks, it kind of felt a little like we were doing a seance. So we stopped doing it altogether. But that's still our mantra. Our mantra is still, God is extraordinary, you are extraordinary, so be extraordinary. So, Steve, here's what happens then. The next logical question in order is, all right, if God is extraordinary and we're extraordinary and to be extraordinary, the next logical question that we're going to answer today is how to be extraordinary. And so what we did was, in the last 2 years, as we've been praying, especially 2 years ago when we first started knowing that we were going to plant this church, we started asking everybody, talking to everybody, going to conferences, going to classes, asking experts, asking people close to us to try to figure out what exactly do we want our church to be like? What exactly do we want our church to be like? And so we came down with 3 very important things. We decided that in order to be extraordinary, there's 3 things you've got to know. You've got to know God, find your family, and make a difference. Those are the 3 things that we believe here at Extraordinary Church. In order to be extraordinary, in order to be part of Extraordinary Church, the very first thing that we believe is that you need to know God. So that's what we're going to talk about today. 3 weeks, know God, find your family, make a difference. Today is to know God. And here's what happens is a lot of times people will look, sometimes, not a lot of times, sometimes people will look at what we do. They'll look at what we do, they'll see the stuff we put online, and I don't know, I know this is hard for you to believe, Robbie, but I have critics. I know, right? Like who? Possibly, right? I have critics. We have critics online. In fact, one lady, I told this story when we first started, but one lady, when we first started putting stuff online, went on my personal Facebook page and wrote on my personal Facebook page, according to my research, this church is a Mormon church. I said, I don't know what kind of research you're doing, lady, but I'm the pastor of said church, and I think that my research is a little bit better than your research. But throughout all of it, we know that they're critics, and the critics will come and they will say, well, this is all that you're teaching your church. If all you're teaching your church is these 2 words, know God, isn't that just too simplistic? I think it's a fair question, honestly. There was people who say, well, know God, well, what about sin? And people tell me that all the time. Do you not believe in sin in our church? Yeah, we do it a lot. We know God is not just all about God, but we also have sin. We have Jesus, salvation. People would say, well, how come you don't talk about all of those things? Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to simplify it. If you simplify it into this know God, what really happens is you get to this idea that what we're trying to do is we're trying to explain something that is very layered and nuanced in the original Greek language, but we're trying to explain it with a modern English language that lets us down all the time. Let me give you a couple of examples. What they would say is, in order to know God, when we have this word K-N-O-W, we use this word a lot. And so depending on where you're at in your brain frame to see what kind of word know you're going to use in this, some might say that's not enough. It's not good enough just to know God. And what I think, again, is because we don't understand the original language of this. So let me give you an example. If you were to say to me, there was this guy that we know, Steve, you're going to like this one. There's this guy we know named Tom Brady, right? You guys can't see it where you're at right now, but Steve is wearing an old school Patriots shirt right now. And you know, I like Steve a lot. I really do. He's a great guy. I really do like Steve a lot. But I feel like there's a lot of shirts he could have wore this morning. I'm just saying, like, but he made a conscious decision this morning to put on the old school Patriots shirt and to sit there, because I think, you know, he's just kind of rubbing it in a little bit. But I understand. It's okay. It's okay. You lost Tom Brady. We lost Tom Brady. We have that in common, right? We have that in common. But if we say, do you know Tom Brady? I can say honestly, I know Tom Brady. I know Tom Brady. I know that he went to University of Michigan. I know that he got drafted by the Patriots and won a ton of Super Bowls with the Patriots. I know then he came to Tampa. I know the exact house that he lived in Tampa. I know where his second house was in Tampa. I've seen a lot of Google pictures of his house in Miami. I know about his ex-wife, his children, his new girlfriend, who I'm a little hesitant on. But I know all of these things about Tom Brady. And so you would say, do you know Tom Brady? Yeah, I know Tom Brady. I know Tom Brady. If somebody comes to me and says, well, you like football, right? Yeah, I like football. Do you know Tom Brady? Oh, I know Tom Brady. He brought us a Super Bowl to Tampa in 2020 in front of all these cardboard cutout audience in Raymond James Stadium. Yeah, we know Tom Brady. But do I really know Tom Brady? You see, what happens is people will say, well, when you say to your church that in order to be extraordinary, you're supposed to know God, are you telling them to know God the same way that you know Tom Brady? No, that is not what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying, because there's another level, right? How about this one? Let me give you another one. I have a next door neighbor named Mr. Nguyen. I think I've talked about him in here before. Mr. Nguyen, it's spelled Nguyen, right? He's Vietnamese, and Mr. Nguyen and I like Mr. Nguyen. I like him a lot. I talk to him every single day. Not one day in my life goes by, unless I'm out of town, not one day in my life goes by that I don't talk to Mr. Nguyen. I leave my house and Mr. Nguyen's out there. And I wave back to Mr. Nguyen. I come home from work, and for whatever reason, I don't know if he's stalking me or if he literally never goes inside, but Mr. Nguyen is outside, and here I am back outside. Mr. Nguyen is also very generous to us. Mr. Nguyen has given us a kayak. Mr. Nguyen has he's given us fireworks, 4th of July. He wasn't celebrating 4th of July. He went to the store to buy fireworks for my kids for 4th of July. Mr. Nguyen's a very nice guy. Very nice guy. Every now and again, Mr. Nguyen throws a party for the neighborhood. Most of the Asian people in the neighborhood will come to Mr. Nguyen's house, and he'll come over to my house and say, can I come over to the party and cook him American steaks? Which, I don't know if he doesn't know that. Literally, I just take the steak and put it on the grill. I don't know if he understands it or not, but I say, yes, sir, Mr. Nguyen, I will go over there and I will cook your steaks for you. The thing is, I know Mr. Nguyen. I literally talk to him every day. I've even received things from Mr. Nguyen. And so some would say, do you know Mr. Nguyen? Yeah, I know him. Is that the same word that you're going to use to know God? See, some of us would say, well, I could talk to God every day. And even God gives me blessings every now and again. See, I know God the same way that I know Mr. Nguyen, and so my critics would say, is that what you mean? I would say we're not quite there yet, Cosmo. We're not quite there yet. Because then it comes to this beautiful ball of sunshine over here, my 14-year-old giraffe, Ethan, over here, and his legs have gotten so long, if you haven't seen him. My son, Ethan, over here, there's a third level of knowing. There's the way that I know Tom Brady, there's the way that I know Mr. Nguyen, and then there's the way that I know my son. I would argue that I know Ethan better than, I'm getting ready for Riverview. I know more better. Sorry, I won't make Riverview jokes over there. I'm sorry. Sorry for all you Riverview people. If we were planted in Plant City, that would make sense, right? I'm sorry. I take that back. I'm sorry. I'm losing the crowd now. All right, here we go. Let's get back to my son, Ethan. So I would argue that I know Ethan better than I know anybody else in the world. Yeah. But some would say, well, what about your wife? Don't you know your wife better than you know your son? I would argue no. Because I've literally been here with him every second of his life. There was an entire life before me, all these boyfriends that my wife had before she met me, right? See, she's not in the room right now. I didn't feel anything thrown at me, so I think I'm good. Okay. She had this whole life beforehand, but Ethan didn't. I've been a part of every part of Ethan's life. In fact, before Ethan ever existed, I knew who he was. And I would even say that before we were even pregnant with Ethan, before even that, my whole life I've dreamed of being a dad. You know, like a lot of women would say, well, I was just born to be a mom. Like, I was born to be a dad. I had dad jokes before I was ever a dad, right? Like, this was me. I had the tube socks up to my calves when I was in college, right? Like, I was ready to be a dad early on. That was a shot straight at Jacob. I was ready to be a dad early on. And so even before the existence of Ethan, I knew him. And in every second of his life, I knew him. When he was born on June 30th, 2009, I was there. When he went back to the hospital on July 5th, 2009, I was there. When we almost lost him from all of his health scares, when they stopped his heart on July 5th at Winter Haven Hospital and said, we hope that it starts back, I was there. I've been with him every second. I've been with him on every step. And I could argue that the way that I know Ethan and the way that we know each other is as close as we're ever going to understand with our human minds to what that word know means. The way that we know God is the way that a father knows his son even before the son was even born. The way that we are to know God is in this intimate, really well-known kind of way. So you can say there's three different categories. I know Tom Brady, I know Mr. Wynn, I know Ethan. But really what you're saying is I know of Tom Brady, I know-ish Mr. Wynn, but I really know my son. So I was thinking, I wanted to find a way to really get you guys to understand this and to remember this. And so I got a couple object lessons here today. Since you guys wasn't here last week, I've had a lot more time to think about this. And so I really wanted another way to, oh gosh, I didn't actually clean this off before I brought it. My apologies to Bloomingdale High School. But I was thinking about this today. I was trying to find a way that I can get you guys to understand a little bit better about this word know. Because what happens is that we have taken this word know and we've used it in such different ways that we don't exactly understand what it means. Because when we use it in the original language, in the original Greek, there's two different kinds of words that we mainly use for the word know, K-N-O-W. The first word is the word oida, O-I-D-A, oida. If you can't remember it, just think of like this really grizzly lady that works at a Brooklyn diner, and she says, what's your oida? Right, that's the word that we're going to use. Thank you, Robbie. You're the only one that laughed, but here's what I know. They're not going to forget that, right? And I told you guys, I was made to be a dad before I was ever a dad, right? That's a good joke right there. In fact, I think her name was Oida. So oida is the word, O-I-D-A, oida, Y-I-oida. I don't know what's happening right now, but yes, that's right. You can get that as well. So oida is the word O-I-D-A, but the other word that we use in the original Greek language is the word gnosko. Everybody say gnosko. Now, when we use the word oida, the idea is kind of like me and Tom Brady. As much as I wish that I really knew Tom Brady, I only oida know him. I only kind of know him. I know facts about him. I've seen him. I've been in the same arena as him. I lived in the same city as him, although much different zip code. I've understood Tom Brady, but I don't really know him. That's the word oida. My wife just awkwardly walked right back in the room. We haven't talked about her at all, have we, everybody? No, not at all. That's the word oida, right? And then you have the word gnosko. And gnosko is a word that the best way you can describe it is that it only comes through experience. That you know somebody in a deeper level because of experience. The way that I've known Ethan is because every day of his life, I've been there to experience the things of his life. So here's the way I was thinking of this. Since summer's almost out, and school started back, and I started to think about like when you go to a hotel pool. Now, you guys are going to have to hang with me on this one because I'm going to go all the way out of here to come back over here, okay? But if you have kids in children's church right now, they're also going to learn about the three things that I'm about to tell you right now. So if you got kids in children's church, ask them today about the three things I'm about to tell you, okay? Because here's what happens. When you go to a pool, who here has gone to a pool this summer? Anybody gone to a pool this summer? All right. in here has gone to the hotel pool this summer? Anybody? When Ethan was a little baby, he grew up in Georgia, and so he would say hotel. He wanted to always go to the hotel. So we go to the hotel pool, and I the best I could figure out, there's probably more, the best I can figure out, there's 3 different kinds of people that go to the hotel pool. Right? This is the way my wife is right here. She's a lot like this person. There's a person that says, I want to go to the pool, but they never actually get in the water, right? Anybody ever been there? Sometimes when you say, I want to go to the pool, what you actually mean is I want to get a chair and I want to sit close to the pool. Anybody here? Who's that? Who's the beach chair people? All right, Joy's admitting it. She's like, yeah, I go to the pool all the time, but I don't actually, don't be ashamed. It's okay. You know what? Other people are just afraid to raise their hand, Joy, so it's okay. It's all right, Joy. So Joy goes to the pool and she's going to sit by the pool. Maybe every now and again she'll go and she'll dip her toes in the water, right? Maybe she'll splash something on her, but most likely when she says, hey Zeke, do you want to go to the pool? What she actually means is that she wants to go and sit by the pool, right? That's number 1. Number 2, this is what my kids are, and quite frankly, I'm the same way. There's the person that when they say I want to go to the pool, they want to go and play in the pool. Right? Oh, here we go. I got you right here. That's you right there, right? All right, if that's you, if you say I want to go play in the pool, go ahead and raise your hand. Let's see here. All right, I got a few right there. So what happens then is you put your floaty on and you put your deal on and you get to the pool and you jump in the pool. Right? I'm straight cannonball. The second I see a pool, straight cannonball, I like to go in, right? You're going to jump in. But then you jump back out again. You jump back out again and you get ready to jump back in again. And then you jump back out again, and then you jump back in again, and you jump back out again. At some point, then you start playing with floaties, you start playing with pool noodles, and maybe you're not really that good of a swimmer, so what you want to do is you want to stay on the shallow end, and if anything goes over to the deep end, it's time to get out, because things have gotten a little too heavy for us, so let's go ahead and get out of the pool. Some of you guys are already following my metaphor here. Now, we have a third kind of person, and this is me, by the way, especially at night. Anybody ever here like to go night swimming? By the way, since we're talking about my daughter, all I did was I reused one of her things that she did. Look, she did a good job on this one, right? Yeah, she did good at that. But so I was trying to figure out the third way to do it. So we have the person that sits by the pool, the person that jumps in and out of the pool all the time, and then we have this third. I didn't know how to signify this, so we just put it on the board. We have the person that likes the hot tub, right? Any hot tub people in the room? Oh, I see Miss Teresa over there. I saw Miss Teresa, the hot tub. Oh man, we were at John's house. Miss Teresa never got out of that hot tub. She said, "This is where I live now." That's what she said. I didn't know exactly how to signify this. I wanted to have an object, but I was like, you're going to put a Speedo up here? Like, am I going to take a cocktail? And then I'd have to be like, oh, it's a non-alcoholic cocktail, but then there's a picture of me holding a cocktail on stage. And then all my critics were like, no, God, no cocktails. Ha, ha, ha. So I didn't do any of that. So we just printed out a picture of a hot tub, because here's the 3 different kind of people that go to the hotel pool. There's the people that want to go to the pool just to sit by the pool. There's the people that want to jump in and out of the pool. And then there's the people that they just want to sit there and soak. And when you soak, and when you're in that hot tub, you ever notice that your fingers start to change a little bit? You ever notice your toes start to get all raisiny? And you know, if you're like me, if you got my skin complexion, 2 seconds in there and I look like a lobster. It's immediately, my whole life changes when I'm soaking in the hot tub. And if you're in a really good hot tub, when you get out, you get that steam coming off of you, you know? And everybody looks at you. They say, wrinkly fingers, red skin, steam, you must have been in a hot tub. You know me. And what I think happens is this is the way that we can describe the way that we know God. Some of you guys, you say, I know God. I know all about God. He's over there. And what I want to do when I say I know God is I want to sit by the things of God. I want to be close to godly examples. In fact, I want my kids to be raised with godly people, so I'm going to take them to church and I'm going to kind of sit on the outside. I want to know God, but I want to know Him from a distance. And some of you guys say, yeah, I know God, but I'm going to know God when I want to know God. And every now and again, I'm going to jump in the pool when things are fun. But when I get in the deep end and things get a little too troubling, I got to get out of the pool. I want to know God when it's convenient for me. I want to know God when it's fun. When things get a little too tough, I'm out of here. But then this is what I want you to know, that today, when we say that to be extraordinary, you are to know God. What I want you to know today is that when you walk out of this door, is that you are to soak in the goodness of who God is. You are to lather in the goodness of God. And when you're in the goodness of God, when you know Him on a hot tub level, you change and everything about you changes. And you emanate the radiance of who God is because you know God. And today, when you leave, I want you to think about this. What level am I on? Yeah, I know God. I know God enough to come to church at a high school on a Sunday morning. I know God enough. I know God enough to know that I need to be around Him, or I know God enough to know that I'm going to jump in the pool when I want to. But do you know God so much that your life is changed, and it's obvious that you've been with Him? So, now that I got out of breath, let me go to the next part. Because the next part says, well, all right, you know God. You know Him on a deeper level. And we know all these three things. And by the way, if you have kids in children's church right now, Pastor Fields is teaching your children these very three things. So have a great lunch conversation with them about it and see if they get it right. If not, just let it be. But here's three ways that I think. Riley, you're going to help me out here, right? Good, because I'm out of breath. Here's three ways that I think that you can help in your knowledge of who God is. Three ways that if you truly know God, if you truly know Him, like soaking in who God is, there's three things that I think is going to happen. Let's see the first one here. To know God is to love. To know God is to love. If you're taking notes, go ahead and write that down. And if you're taking notes, you can also write down this verse. 1 John chapter 4, verse 7. It says this, "Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God showed His love among us. He sent His one and only Son into the world that we might live through Him. This is love, not that we loved God, but that He loved us and sent His Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we ought also to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and His love is made complete in us." You know what you really caught in those verses? Is that to know God is to love. Is it to love God? Yes. Is it to love others? Yes. Is it to love in general? Yes. To know God is to love. Why? Because God is love. So I was thinking of it like this. I started doing the math yesterday, which, is always hard for me. But I started doing the math yesterday, and I think that in the last 3 years, I believe that I think I'm right at 100 weddings that I've done in the last 3 years. I see okay, all right, whatever, we can do that. I see all right, so Kevin and Katerina, all right, I see them over there. I see the Bakers back there, which Mr. Baker was up there. He gave his daughter away right up there. That's how I met Mr. Baker. I see Julia's parents, Herb right there. I've been in that when Herb's walking down the aisle, not because, he was giving, you know what I mean. He wasn't wearing a dress. So I've done all of these weddings, and I was thinking about this, when I talk to all these brides, and mainly brides, but sometimes the grooms want to weigh in. But I talk to the brides, and I say, how do you want this ceremony to go? Do you want to do your own vows? Do you want me to do vows? Oh, look at Kyle and Molly right here. How did I miss Kyle and Molly sitting right here in the middle? I've done their wedding. Do you want to do your own vows? Do you want me to do it? No. Why don't you go ahead? And 9 times out of 10, now go ahead and write your own. Write my vows for me, because everyone wants to get emotional and do all that stuff, Kyle was just sweaty, dude. It wasn't exactly his fault. It was pretty hot out there, but yeah, it was funny is every time we prayed, he had a groomsman that would wipe his sweat off. That was pretty good, though, right? That's how you know you got a good best man right there. Anyhow, sorry, Kyle. He's gonna beat me up later. So I was thinking about when you do these vows and they do these vows back and forth, do you promise to love and cherish, to honor, sustain, and the good that may lighten your ways and the bad that may darken your days, and be true to them in all things until death alone shall you part. Do you have these vows that you give to each other? And let's just take the woman's point of view for a minute, because on the woman's point of view would say that I'm going to give this vow and I'm going to say this to my husband, my now husband, because I love them. I love them, right? This is a pretty obvious thought. you're going to love somebody that you're going to marry. This is pretty common. But really what happens is in the back of your mind, especially as a woman, understandably so, the back of your mind, you're saying, like, I love this guy. I want to give these vows to this guy. But, like, do I really know him? You know, honestly, like you get together and you get married, but you really don't know that person. Like, you know of them. You know things, you know facts, you've been in some experiences, but really what happens is the bride in the back of their mind, they don't like to say it out loud, but in the back of their mind, they're like, you know, is he going to love me? Is he going to love me when he sees me with no makeup on, right? Is he going to love me when he smells my breath before I brush my teeth, right? Is he going to love me when he realizes how hangry I get, right? And sometimes that's dicey, right? But, yeah, I don't know. Like, is he going to love me? Is he going to be faithful to me? Is it like, I'm going to say these vows, and I hope so, but is he really going to be faithful to me? And then this one, what about when we have kids? Like, is he going to be a good father? Like, I'm saying these vows right here to you, but there's some things in my mind, like, I love him, but I don't really know him. And what you find then is that the longer that you're married, and the longer that you're with that person, and the more that you get to know them, and the more that you can say, you know what? They've seen me without my makeup on. They've smelt my breath before I brush my teeth. They've seen me when I'm hangry a lot. And they still love me. And man, he has been faithful to me. And I'll tell you what, since the kids were born, I'll let you know, that's a good father. When you figure that out, now that you know who your spouse is, your love for them grows even more. And now, some of you guys have already connected my dots for me. And now, this is the exact same way that we are with our relationship with Christ. Exact same way that we are with our relationship with God. When we know God, we've accepted him, we've accepted Jesus into our hearts so that we can have a relationship with God. And it's essentially like we're saying to Jesus, hey, Jesus, here's my vows. I want to be faithful to you, Jesus, until death do us part. And then when we part, we're actually going to reunite, which is super cool. And so I want to be faithful to you, Jesus. I want to accept you into my heart. I want to do this. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, but God's going to know a whole lot of things about me that nobody else is going to know. Will he still love me? Will God be faithful to me? Is God going to be a good father? And the more that you get to know God, the more that you realize he loves you. He loves you with an everlasting love. He loves you even though he knows the things about you that nobody in the world knows. He loves you, and boy is he faithful. He has always been faithful, and he will always be faithful because he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And my friends, I will tell you this, he is a good father. He is a good father. And so you can know that the more that you get to know God, the more that you know that he loves you, he's faithful to you, he is a good father. And the more you know him, the more that you love him. And the more that you love him, the more that you know him. And it's this endless cycle that goes on for the rest of your life until you get to see him face to face. To know God is to love. I was thinking of it like this the other day. I was thinking that sometimes what happens is that the reason that we jump in and out of the pool a lot, the reason that some of us are like, roller coaster Christians, like we're up and down, depending on, if we're hangry or not, right? Just how much in love with God we are. And I think some of the reasons that is because for some of us, we've gotten to the point that we're actually more infatuated with the things that God can give us instead of who God is. Right? We become more infatuated with the miracles instead of the miracle maker. Right, let me give you an example. This is from Francis Chan, so I'm going to use it hypothetically for my daughter. This is a completely hypothetical situation, but hypothetically speaking, what if I said to my daughter, daughter, that's what I call her. I say, daughter, how about this year for your birthday? No cake. No presents. No party, no music, no nothing. You're going to invite friends over. I'm going to take their phones at the door, and all they're going to do is just sit and be with you. How many of your friends do you think will come to this birthday party? I mean, Kate's pretty high up on the social skill ladder, so, maybe 2 or 3 is going to show up. But then what if I said, all right, Kate, now let's flip that. Not only am I going to get you a cake, but I'm going to get you a mega cake. Like, this is going to be the best cake you've ever seen in your life. It's going to be huge. It's a great cake. There's no other cake ever like it. It's the best cake, right? This is going to be a great cake. And what if I told you that we're just going to rent out Dave & Buster's? Nobody else is going to be there except for who you invite. And when your friends leave, we're going to give them brand new iPhones. Brand new iPhones. How many of your friends do you think would show up to that party? But the whole school's going to be there, right? People are going to show up that don't even know Kate. They're just going to try to learn her name before they walk into Dave & Buster's. Are you here with Kate? Who's Kate? The birthday girl. Oh, yeah, I know her. We go way back. Yeah, I know her. You know why? Because they're going to be infatuated with the things that they can get from Kate, and they don't really care about her herself. They just want the things of Kate and not Kate. And sometimes in our lives we get so infatuated with the things of God. All of the things that God can give us, all the miracles and the blessings and the family. And when things are going good, my friends, we are in that pool. We are knowing God and things are good. But what if all of it was stripped away? What if all of it was stripped away? What if there was no birthday cake? What if there was no party? What if there was no Dave & Buster's? What if it was just you and God? Is that enough? And you have to come to a point in your life that if you're going to know God, what you have to know is you have to know that God by Himself is enough. So to know God is to love. I got to keep moving. To know God is to love. To know God is to trust. To trust. Everybody say trust. Trust. Psalm chapter 9 verse 10. Psalm 9:10 says this. Those who know the Lord trust Him because He will not leave those who come to Him. I think what happens is the more you get to know somebody, the more that you trust somebody, right? I'm going to skip a couple lines here in my message to keep moving it on because I was thinking about this. When you think about trusting somebody, you trust somebody because you know them, right? So here's a really good example. Has anybody in here ever fallen asleep in an Uber? Just me. Oh, okay. Joy, you shouldn't be the only embarrassed one now because I have now put myself out there vulnerably to people. And have you fallen asleep in an Uber? No. Oh, okay. No, because I was talking about the pool thing earlier and you're the only one that raised your hand. Yeah, we'll talk about it later. All right, so I've done that before, right? So here's what happens. Usually if I'm driving, if I'm in an Uber, it's because I'm in a different city, right? I got my own car. I'm not going to New York, well, sometimes. So I got everybody else's car. But so if I'm in another city, then usually I'll get an Uber. And then what happens if I'm in the Uber and I fall asleep? Well, the second that I wake up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in an Uber. And then you've got to check the app immediately. And is he going the right place or is he taking me to some undisclosed warehouse in the boonies somewhere, right? Like, you got to make sure you know that. You know why? Because, all right, they're an Uber driver, but you don't really know them. So if you don't know them, can you really trust them? And so if you fall asleep in an Uber, the first thing you got to do when you wake up is make sure the Uber driver is still Ubering properly, right? You got to make sure his Uber is still on Uber point. But what happens then if you fall asleep in a car and somebody that you know is driving? And you wake up and you say, oh, did I fall asleep? Wait, where are we at? How long until we get there? You know why? Because you trust the person that's driving. Now, will they take pictures of you while you're drooling asleep? That probably happened, but you still trust that they're going to take you in the spot that you're going to get to. This is what happens in our lives. We say that the more that we know God, the more that we trust Him. The more that we know anybody, the more that we trust them. Because what they've done is they've proven themselves over and over again. They've proven themselves through experience, and you know that every time I say, God, I'm going to trust you, He comes through. Every time I say, God, you take me where you want to take me, He always takes me there. And what you do is that through time, the more that you know God, the more that you can trust Him because you know that He always gets you to the right spot at the right time, exactly where you needed to be. So this is kind of where we were at when we started Extraordinary Church, right? Like, we just had to trust Him. I was thinking then about going back to like my pool, my water metaphor here. I'm going to see how long I can stretch this water metaphor out. Everybody with me? Okay, good. Yeah, I didn't carry through where I'm going to still go. So imagine now that you're a little kid and you're trying to learn how to swim, right? Like when my kids were learning how to swim, and Ethan, for instance, right? He loved the water, and so imagine now he's trying to learn how to swim, and so I'm in the pool, and I just got my hands up. Hey, come on, Ethan, jump to me. Jump to me, buddy. Come on. But for him, like, I'm in the deep end. He says, but you're in the deep end. Yeah, but it doesn't matter for me because I can touch. My feet touch the bottom. So you know me. You trust me. Come and jump to me. And that's what he would do. He would come and jump. And yeah, it was the deep end, but I got him. I can touch the bottom. Now what if there was some other random dude at the pool? Or the dude with like a Speedo and chest hair named Guido. He's like, hey, yo, you just jump to me, right? Don't jump, Ethan. Never jump to a guy named Guido, right? Never jump to him. Why? Because you don't know him. And if you don't know him, you can't trust him. The reason that you jump into the arms of your Father is because you know your Father and you trust your Father. And you know that he's not going to let anything bad happen to you. And while you might not be able to see the bottom, his feet are firmly planted and he can catch you. And guys, today, some of you guys, God is telling you right now, it's time to jump in the deep end. It's time. He's got his arms out and he's just saying, trust me. And you're saying, yeah, but I can't see what's going to happen. And he's saying, yeah, I'm firmly planted though, baby. Come on, because I'm your Father. You know me. You can trust me. Jump. A lot of you guys today, I think what's going to have to happen is that you're going to have to come a point in your life where you're going to say, I'm ready to jump in the deep end of knowing who God is. I'm ready to go all in. I'm ready to say that, as C.S. Lewis said, if Christianity is false, I'm going to completely reject it. But if true, it has to be everything about my life. And I'm ready to jump in the deep end and just trust that God's going to catch me. For us, when we started this church, that's kind of what we had to do. We didn't really know what was going to happen. We didn't know anything really about anything. But we knew that God was calling us to plant this church, right? We had Rhonda back there, people that are in our neighborhood, and we knew that we kind of liked these people in the neighborhood, so let's start a church for the people in our neighborhood. And so what we had to do at some point was we just had to jump. We just had to jump and say, God, you're going to have to catch us. If you don't catch us, we drown, but you know what? We're going to jump anyhow. Because you know what God's looking for is He's never looking for our knowledge. He's never looking for our ability. He's never looking for how cool we are, how smart we are, how rich we are. He's always looking for us to be faithful to Him. He's always looking for us to trust Him. And we find is that when we put our trust in God, He always catches us. He always catches us. And so that's why our next venture, we're jumping in the deep end, baby. We just left about an hour ago or so. I've been preaching for a while, about 3 hours ago. My wife's going to tell me about this all week. But we left Kids Community College just a little bit ago, and to see our new digs, the church that's there, they prayed for us. And they send us off on our way. And we know that on September 10th, we're going to be in there as our extraordinary church at Riverview campus. And you know, the only thing that we know how to do is to jump. We're just going to jump in the deep end and trust that God is there for us and trust that God's going to catch us. You know why? Because what we know is that there are people all around there, and that whole city has become insulated. You guys that have come from there, you know that it's impossible to get anywhere around that city, and there's just thousands and thousands of more people coming to move in. So what's going to happen in the next few years is that everybody that lives in Riverview, they're going to make sure they build all the shopping centers in Riverview and all the schools in Riverview. And then you know what they're also going to need? They're also going to need some churches in Riverview, because once you get in Riverview, at some point people are going to stop leaving Riverview and they're going to stay there. And that's why we've got to come in. We've got to step in and say, Extraordinary Church Riverview needs to exist, because we need people to understand that you can know God, find your family, and make a difference. We need people to understand that it's not just about sitting by the pool. It's not just about jumping in when everything is comfortable, but it's about soaking in the goodness of who God is, so that He changes your life forever, so that you emanate the radiance of God everywhere that you go, so that people will know that you've been with God. And when that happens, we will make a difference, not just in Brandon, but in Riverview and beyond. And all we have to do is jump. To know God is to trust. And finally, to know God is to obey. Trust and obey. Some of you guys know that song, right? There's no other way. Hey, Jacob, you're not going to sing that song, are you? You don't have to, but come on out here, Jacob, because I want you to make me sound spiritual as I end, okay? Because here's what happens here. It says to know God is to love, to know God is to trust, and to know God is to obey. As I was thinking about how I was going to end this message today, I was thinking about these three things right here. I started to go back to our time that we had in Chicago last week. Buddy Kevin's right there, and Anthony and Megan's. I was probably working with our kids. But our people came with us. Hey, Riley, you know what? Do you have a picture to put up on the screen for me, Riley? We went to Starting Point Community Church, and as we were there, what we found is that we have a new sister church. So when you have a mission strategy as a church, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. But the way that I choose to do it, the way that we choose to do it at Extraordinary Church, is to say that we're going to find a partner here in the United States. And we're going to have a long-term partnership with them, as opposed to saying we're going to go and have a mission trip here and a mission trip there and a mission trip there, and then it kind of just turns into vacation mission trips, right? We're going to go on a mission trip to the places that have the nicest beaches. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to instead do that. We prayed about where we're going to go. And we prayed where he said we're going to end up in Chicago. And Kevin started doing all the legwork months and months ago when we found this church called Starting Point Community Church. And Pastor Jonathan is like the Chicago version of me. It's really amazing. In fact, we literally drive the exact same car, color and everything. Unbelievable. And he was so nice. All week he just let me drive his car because people love to let me drive their cars. It's just the thing about me. And so we were driving all around Chicago. Here's what we didn't know when we started this conversation. What we didn't know when we started to talk to Jonathan was that over the few months that we've gotten to know him, that Chicago was going through a humanitarian crisis. And the humanitarian crisis that was happening, that only started 3 months ago, right when we first started talking to Pastor Jonathan. And the crisis is that because Chicago is a sanctuary city, much like DC and New York and San Francisco, what happens is that when immigrants come here from other countries, they can get put there. And legally speaking, Chicago is not allowed to kick them out. So for the last 3 months, 11,000 Venezuelan people have showed up in the city of Chicago. A lot of them come from here in Florida. A lot of them come from El Paso, Texas. They're being bused, they're being shipped, they're being flown. And the people of Chicago are having to figure out how are they going to do this. And we didn't know any of this was going to happen. We didn't know this was what was about to happen. But you guys said, hey, you know what? We'll bring you stuff. We'll bring you things for these people. This Jonathan at his church, a Starting Point Community Church, he's housing now 14 people from Venezuela. One of them is our new friend Edwin. And Edwin prayed to receive Christ a couple weeks ago, and now we took him to his first Starbucks. Man, he's so pumped and on fire for God. But what's happening now is that you've got thousands of Venezuelans that's showing up in one city, and that's just thousands in the last 3 months. There's thousands more that's on their way. So there's a humanitarian crisis that's happening in Chicago because of what's happening in Venezuela. So if you have any time, if you're bored today, just look up Venezuela. And you realize that what they're saying, the experts are saying, that in Venezuela right now, it's 5 times worse than the Great Depression ever was here. But there's no end in sight. And so people are coming to the United States not for a better life. People are coming to the United States just to survive. And I don't know about you, but to me that sounds like exactly where Jesus would go. This picture that we have here is that they took us to the police station. And there's so many people that have no place to stay that all the police stations in Chicago now have Venezuelan families just sleeping on the floor until they try to figure out what to do. We got to walk into these families and hand them goods that you guys provided. Miss Kathy gave us some Bibles back there, and this guy that I'm praying with right now, after we left, we looked back and he opened his Bible and he was so happy to have his Bible that he could read. This guy was telling us about his family. And he didn't come here just by himself. He came here with his kids. Little girl, younger than Kate. And Katerina, of course, she has to wreck me, and she says, can you imagine if you had to bring Kate? No. Nobody's doing that to my daughter. But what happened to this guy is he said, they have to leave Venezuela. So he got his little girl, he's got his baby, he got his wife, and they had to go through the Colombian jungle. They had to cross rivers with snakes and animals. When they were in the jungle, they would see other dead people that didn't make it as they went through. Nothing to eat, nothing to drink. They finally got to Mexico and they got on a train for 4 days. They were on 4 different trains like this with no ventilation. He said the worst part about the entire trip was this train ride in Mexico. And then he finally gets here to the United States. And what he told us, what he told Kevin and I, it was pretty amazing, because really what happens is the way Kevin described it is it really gave us faith in Christians around the world. Because what he told us was that every country that they got to, that there was a group of Christians waiting for them. That there was always believers in Christ that was there willing and ready to give them a hand, no matter what country they went to. But he was talking to this little girl, and I said, how did you get her to swim across the rivers in the Colombian jungle? And he said, what I did was every time she got to the edge of a river, I told her that if she makes it to the other side of the river, then she'll be an even stronger warrior than she is right now. And she got in that water and she swam across, and he said that now she was ready for the next river. She was ready for the next obstacle. She was ready for the next adventure, because she knew that whenever she got through something, that she was an even stronger warrior when she got to the other side. When I saw the look on her face, the look of pride to know that her dad thinks that she's a mighty warrior, that she's capable of anything, immediately in my mind it started to say, that's exactly the way God views us. And yet most of us are never going to go through anything like they've gone through in their life. Most of us won't. But we go through our own trials. We go through our own difficulties. What we have to do is we have to know that our Father has our best interest in heart. We have to know that when our Father takes us to the edge of something that looks really difficult, we have to know that our Father is making us a stronger warrior. And when things get tough and when things get hard, what you have to know is you have to know God. Because when you know God, then you love. And when you love, then you trust. And when you trust, then you obey. And when you obey, you can get through anything. Because you, my friends, are mighty warriors. And I believe that you're extraordinary. So today, as we finish, I just want you to think about this. I want you to think about where are you at in your relationship with God? You sitting by the pool today? Have you made a lifetime of jumping in and out? Are you ready today to say that I'm going to go all in with God? I'm willing to be changed. I'm willing to soak in the goodness of who God is. So we're going to do this at times. I'm going to ask you guys to go ahead and stand to your feet to get these noisy chairs out of the way. And I just want you to take a couple seconds. We're just going to take a couple seconds of silence. And I just want you to pray this simple prayer. This very simple prayer. I want you to pray this prayer. 3 words. God, now what? That's it. Close your eyes. Have some silence. And pray this prayer. God, now what? God, as you're in this room today, as you're here amongst us, as you're here with us, as you're answering the question individually for everybody in this room, now what? I pray, God, that you will put it very clearly on the heart of everybody here today to know what their next step is. Is their next step going all in with you? Is their next step getting out from the side of the pool? Is their next step completely jumping to your arms and trusting that you're going to catch them? Is their next step going through a river, knowing that they are a mighty warrior? I pray that right now that you put on everybody's heart what their next step is. I pray that you will help us to know you, not in a kind of know kind of way, not in a know of kind of way, not in a know-ish kind of way, but in a real deep knowing, gnosko kind of way. We can know you, we can experience you, we can love you, we can trust you, we can obey you. God, my heart's desire is that I know you. My heart's desire is that I know you so well that I know the next step to take. That I know you so well that I emanate the radiance of who you are. God, I love you so much. We thank you, Lord, for being in this room. We thank you for allowing us to even know you. In your name we pray. Amen.